You kind of have to know the worldview of the artist as well, which I think is part of the fun. I like to talk about what was important to that artist, and let's try that.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am back today with Courtney Sanford from the Delightful Art Co. And we're talking about art this week. And if you missed Monday's episode, go back and listen to that. We talked about that there were 7 primary genres of art: painting, sculpture, architecture, literature, film, theater, and music. And then I would say the bonus ones would be photography and drawing. And so Courtney talked with us on Monday about how we can incorporate some of those things into our homeschool. And for those of you who are homeschool mamas who are not very artistic, and it doesn't come naturally to you to teach art to your kids, Courtney is a great resource. She's got some great resources. She's got great books. She teaches classes online, and we'll put all the links to those things in the show notes so that you can easily find those. But we're going to talk more about art today and how to teach it in your homeschool. This is part of our Homeschooling Every Subject series. And this has been such a fun series to do, just talking through all the different things that we teach to our kids in our homeschool. And for myself, I know that I'm really good at teaching the things that I'm comfortable teaching, but things that get me outside of my comfort zone, I tend to kind of push off. And then sometimes we don't get to them. And I'm like, oh man, we didn't do that particular subject. And so that's why I wanted to do this series, because I wanted to give you the encouragement that I need myself to be able to teach all of the subjects in a way that is fun and effective. And, you never know. Courtney has a son who's a scientist and one who's going to dental school, and she's an art teacher. And so, I don't know that they're going to do a whole lot of art on people's teeth, though that might become a thing. I don't know. Maybe that is the thing, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, he may end up as an orthodontist, which is kind of artistic. But,
right.
I'm going to suggest art on teeth to him and see what he does with that.
I think I could be totally wrong, and I might be making this up, but I think you can actually have your teeth tattooed or something weird like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking people's lips. I don't know. Something weird. Don't tattoo your teeth though. That would be really, really strange. So anyway, before we get back into our conversation though, I want to say thank you again to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. If you guys are looking for great artistic curriculum, and I say that because I've seen their curriculum, we've used their curriculum, and I have actually been into the art department at BJU Press, and they have incredible artists. And we'll talk a little bit about digital art, because that's kind of what they do, a lot of digital art for their curriculum. But if you guys are looking for a great curriculum that has great art that's taught from a strong biblical worldview, check them out at bjupresshomeschool.com. And they've got something for everyone, bjupresshomeschool.com. Well, Courtney, who does not have her teeth tattooed, welcome back to the podcast. Could you imagine? Oh, that would be so interesting. I know people put gold caps on their teeth. That's artistic, I guess. I don't know. I don't think I'd want that. But anyway, let's talk more about art. And I want to talk about you. You have a scientist child. You have a dentist / orthodontic type child. How does someone who's an artist raise children who are not artistic and not artists? And how do you combine those subjects together?
Yeah. Well, I think that they all are artistic. In fact, my daughter's a professional photographer. Although she doesn't enjoy drawing or painting, but she's a very good photographer. And then, so they can all draw confidently, but they didn't choose to major in it. But I could tell my oldest son loved science from birth. And the books that he would beg for would be like the animal encyclopedia. And he would just read that in his spare time. Of course, our TV broke and we just didn't get it fixed for several years. And I think that contributed to some good homeschool time. So they didn't know that was an option. So in their free time, they would be drawing the things that they liked in their books. So he would draw animals from the animal encyclopedia. And that was a good foundation. And then as he got older, well, I should have said this at the beginning. We didn't start off as homeschoolers. We put our kids in private school to start with. The local school didn't look safe, and I have issues with safety, so they weren't going to go there. And so they went to a private Christian school who did I shouldn't say the name, but it was a workbook-based program. And they just did worksheet to worksheet. And if you ask the teacher, what are you doing in science class? She would say page 48. And she didn't even know what was on page 48. It was her job to make those kids do those worksheets. And so I was fundamentally opposed to worksheets after that. I was like, there will be no more worksheets. And then when we got into, in middle school and elementary school, it's easy to make that science fun and interactive. And you do a lot of hands-on experiments. And I would include the element of play. So if we did an experiment from a book or library book, I would just leave the stuff out and let them play with it and discover whatever they discovered. It's usually safe stuff from the kitchen anyway. So they had that element of play. But then when we got into high school, it is kind of hard to keep a high school student engaged and giving it their all. And so one technique that I learned was, instead of using the on your own questions and the quizzes in a science textbook, I had all my kids summarize the text. So you still have to read it, and then you summarize it, and then you draw the diagrams and draw the animals or whatever it is in the science book into a blank art journal. And you can get these blank art journals at Michael's or on Amazon. So start with the blank book. I did that in college. So that's a college technique. I'm not making it up. You start with a blank book and then they fill it. It's kind of like if you've read Carry On, Mr. Bowditch. It's the story of a guy who invented a lot of things, but whenever he wanted to learn something, he would write his own book on the subject. So he'd do the research, and he essentially wrote his own book on Latin to teach himself Latin, and he wrote his own book on nautical navigation and things like that. And so you have the kid create their own science book, and it's so much more engaging, and they're so proud of it. And then you get this review as they show their family and their grandparents their book and talk about it. They learn so much better than doing quizzes and questions, because if you have them read the text in order to pass a test, they are going to be reading, looking for the things that will be on the test, and that's what their focus will be. So take that away, and the focus is what's interesting and what's important, and you record those in your book. A total game changer, and you can use that all through high school. And then the focus is on drawing and recreating and learning. And if they don't understand it well enough to summarize it, they can go watch a YouTube video and have somebody else explain the concept, and then they can summarize it in their own words. And that's a game changer.
Yeah, that is a great idea. And it's funny though, you talk about workbooks and worksheets. My daughter, and maybe because she never has been in regular school, she loves them. I talked about this at the very beginning of the year, that I had this whole plan to do Charlotte Mason with her. We were going to just lean toward Charlotte Mason this year. And I was so excited. And then she was like, I just want to fill in blanks. Can we just do workbooks? And she loves it. That's what she loves to do, but she also loves to draw. And so this is a really great way. I've not had her do this before. And so I'm going to try this with her and see if it works. That's a fantastic. I think she would really enjoy that.
Yeah. Does she retain what she does in her workbook?
Yes. A lot of it. Yes.
It helps her remember it.
Yeah. It's interesting the way,
my son. He didn't remember it.
Yeah. So the way we do it is I read to her. She sits with me and I read to her because she's an auditory learner. And so she sits and reads the book herself. Her brain will just go off into a million different places. But if I sit and read it to her and she does something else with her hands, draws or makes bracelets or sews, whatever, if she's doing something else with her hands and I'm reading it to her, I'll say, every couple paragraphs, are you paying attention? And she'll say, yep. And she will repeat back exactly what I just said. And then we'll just keep going. And she can fill in the blanks a lot of times just without even looking at the book. But she's just an auditory. That's how she learns. And so, she loves it. But I think she would really enjoy drawing out things too, as well. And so that's a fantastic way for her to show what she's learning, make sure she's actually paying attention, to what she's hearing. So.
Yeah. It sounds like she's artistic. She would love it. Yeah. With the goal of producing your own book on the subject.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to try that. That will be so much fun. I think she'll like that a lot. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Have you tried CTC Math yet with your child? Here's a testimonial from another happy homeschool mom. Amber said, I'm absolutely thrilled with CTC Math. It's a rare find that I've used with my children for more than 5 years now. I have 6 children using CTC Math, and each child has found it easy to navigate and very applicable. Thank you so much for all that you are doing in providing quality math lessons for my children. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com. That's ctcmath.com. Join Apologia for the Homeschool Bootcamp, a free video series that provides practical guidance and wisdom from experienced homeschool parents. You'll discover how to equip your family for academic, social, and spiritual success. Plus, you'll discover how to build deeper and stronger family relationships. Homeschool Bootcamp covers how to break free from the public school mindset, daily planning, supporting students with learning challenges, homeschooling as a working parent, navigating the high school years, and much more. Find this incredible free homeschool resource at apologia.com/bootcamp. We are back with Courtney. So we were talking before the break about keeping an art journal. And when you did that with your kids, do you mark on there, science, chapter 1, anatomy, physiology, chapter 1, chapter 2? Do you have it organized that way, or do you just let them kind of freely draw?
Yes, we do. We do separate by chapter, but I don't go down to like module. So they really pick what they find is interesting. So they, I don't know, I feel like they read the whole thing and then they judge what they think is most important and most interesting to put into their art journal. So I think they still learn about it, even if they're reading it and judging, this is less important. So it's not as the quantity of material that makes it into their book is significantly less than what's in like Apologia.
Yes. Yeah. So, I know most people will listen to this, but a lot of people watch these videos as well. If you can, I don't know if you can kind of try to do this for those listening, but you have an art journal with you. Can you show us really quickly what your art journal looks like?
Yeah, so this is my art journal on art history. I should find the one on science, but I like the hardback ones, and they just have blank pages to start with, and then you can take notes and do your paintings. You can paint and draw in these as well.
Oh, wow. Is that a sketchbook that you use?
I use mixed media art journals, which has a thicker paper. So you can paint on this. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. So the sketchbooks are good if you're going to just use a pencil because the paper's thinner. But if you want to use watercolor or acrylics or pen, buy one that says mixed media on it. And some of them have a spiral bound, which is nice for drawing on the go. If you were going to go outside and draw a tree, I'd get the spiral bound ones. You flip it backwards. Then you have a nice flat surface to draw on as well. And it makes a beautiful keepsake. And then you don't have stuff all over the walls and the refrigerator. It's all in a book. Right. And then you can have a book on history, you can have a book on science, and you put them on the shelf, and you'll keep it forever. If there's just random pieces of paper, they're going to be lost, and they're not.
Right.
And the other thing about working in a book, too, is that one piece of art is not a masterpiece that you should stress out about. It's one page in a book. And so I can relax and know it's not going to stand alone. It's not a masterpiece. I can relax and know that it's going to be good because it's a part of a body of work that I work on all year.
Yeah. So fun. I love that. I love this idea so much. Let's shift gears really quickly. And I want to talk about famous artists and the importance of teaching our kids about famous artists and the different techniques that they use to do their art. I love going to art museums and seeing all the different kinds of art that different artists create. Talk about that for a minute.
I love that too. In fact, my favorite class is the art history class, and we take one artist a week and we look at their art, and then we either do a detail from a painting. Like when you're in the Renaissance, that's a big deal. I can't recreate a Renaissance painting, but I could maybe paint the oranges on the windowsill of the Arnold Feeney wedding portrait. So we might just do a little detail from it. Or, as you get into the modern art, the technique becomes the fun thing to play with. So you kind of have to know the worldview of the artist as well, which I think is part of the fun. And then I like to talk about what was important to that artist, and let's try that. And so, like, if you look at Michelangelo, he loved like the perfect body. And so we might do a portrait in which we might trace a face of Michelangelo and then learn to shade it really well, paying attention to what Michelangelo valued. But then when we get into the modern era, we might look at Jackson Pollock, who was a rebel. He was kind of like James Dean. He wore the black leather jacket and he was like, "The heck with all of you." And so he threw out everything from the Renaissance, everything that anybody had learned about art. He just threw it out and he splatter painted. And so there's not that, we don't keep splatter painting because I think he exhausted the medium.
Right.
But it's really fun to play with. And so every year I look forward to Jackson Pollock Week with my students, and we splatter paint and we paint crazy stuff that doesn't mean anything. And so we can learn from that. The other thing I like to do is I like to incorporate art as like a timeline marker so that it helps me remember history. So if I tell you that Georgia O'Keeffe's brother died in World War I in the trenches, and then together we paint a red poppy because the poppy is like a memorial to the World War I soldiers, you'll probably never forget when Georgia O'Keeffe lived. She's in that World War I, World War II period, which was surprising to me because if you study the artist out of context, she seems pretty modern, and you might have thought she was more recent than that. So that helps a lot. The other artist that I find fascinating is Matisse, who did cut paper. He did that because he had arthritis in his hand so bad that he couldn't continue painting. So he found these huge upholstery scissors. For those of you listening, I'm holding my hands out really big to show you how big upholstery scissors are. And so he would cut shapes out of painted paper that he would have his assistants paint, and he would cut the shapes out and he would create art that way. And so we can create art out of cut paper. And then he would actually see beautiful art on the floor from his scraps. And so I have my students do a cut paper painting, and then I make them make another composition using the things on their floor from their scraps. And so we get the whole experience of him. And you won't read this in any book, but I think he was a real Christian. He was living in occupied France during World War II, and his daughter was actually caught and tortured for helping the resistance. And he stayed when all the other modern artists came over here to America. He stayed. Yeah. And then there was one piece he did. He designed a chapel for one of his healthcare worker nuns, in which he did this beautiful stained glass window. And when the sun hits it right, the sun casts the glow of all these colors over a sketch of the Passion of Christ. And I don't think a non-Christian would create something so profound as that. The beautiful colors, that beauty covering that suffering. It's just fabulous. And it's modern and contemporary looking, but so profound and Christian.
Yeah, art is so interesting because it's like music, right? It tells a story. It tells a story of what people are thinking, what their struggles are, what their joys are, maybe about their families, what they've been reading. If they're reading certain parts of scripture, you often go to art museums and you'll see Jesus, or, you'll see the baby Jesus, and, or you'll see Paul, or you'll see Peter walking on water. I mean, there's so many different things that you see, and it's really just people. It's God speaking through people oftentimes, not always, of course. But it's telling a story. It really does tell a story of who they are as people, because we write about, we draw about, we talk about, we paint about, we sing about the things that are important to us and the things that make us humans and make us who we are. And so art really is a way to reflect who we are as God's creation. And I just think that's so absolutely fascinating, and so many different ways that we can do that. Well, we are out of time again. I know, so quickly, but let's come back tomorrow. And we've got more to talk about. We're going to talk about some other different aspects of art, some of the other genres of art. And I'm excited to talk about those as well. So you guys have a great rest of your day. Tell us one more time, Courtney, where people can find out more about you and the Delightful Art Co.
Go to www.delightfulartco.com, and you can learn all about what we're doing and see our live classes and our self-paced classes, which you can start anytime. On there in the shop, we've got 4 books that will help you get started if you want to do it at home on your own.
Awesome. We will put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned at the very end to hear what's coming up next on the podcast, and we will see you back here tomorrow. Bye.
You're listening to the Biblical Family Network.
Hey, I'm Miki.
And I'm Will.
And we're the co-hosts of the Culture Proof Podcast. We want to invite you to join us every week as we discuss what's happening in the world and then filter those happenings through a decidedly biblical lens.
There are many questions, especially when we see what's happening in our culture today, but the answers are found within the Word of God. So that's where we want to look.
Amen. When we resist those cultural trends that rival the truth,
we remain culture proof.
One of the things that he did starting very early on, actually started doing this before the kids were homeschool age, was he started reading aloud to them. And my son was not a fan of going to sleep. He would fight it. And so my husband, it was kind of a battle of wills. My husband was like, I'm going to read to him till he goes to sleep. And my son was like, I'm going to stay up all night. And so this battle of wills resulted in them reading tons and tons of literature.